My name is Douglas Ouimet, and I'm here to talk to you about resumes and cover letters. So, I like to talk about these two things together because it's going to be very rare that you ever just need one of them. Whenever you apply for a position or an opportunity, traditionally they're going to ask you for a resume and a cover letter. So, I want to make sure that this presentation really emphasizes that. So, I'm going to start off by talking about resumes, but don't worry, cover letters is coming in the second half of this presentation. So when I start talking about resumes, I like to describe it in the most basic way possible, and that's what this robot's here for. So a resume is just a bunch of stuff that you write down on a sheet of paper that explains why you're awesome, why someone should like you, and they should want to give you money. The part that everyone tends to forget, though, is this word and. You need to make sure that when you're creating your resume, it's not just a sheet of paper that explains why you're awesome. It also needs to explain why they should like you and want to give you money. So you need to make sure that every single component of the resume meets this requirement. That means we're going to be tailoring the resume to every individual opportunity that you'll be applying for. When you're all said and done, you're going to have a document that looks similar to this. It's going to be a bunch of information about you, broken into different categories like you see here. So we have your contact section, education, experience, honors, and activities. I intentionally picked a blurry image here because I want you all to realize that from a distance, your resumes may look similar, but once you get up close, you're all individually unique people that are applying for individually unique opportunities. So the words, the categories, the sections, everything on the resume may look different from student to student and opportunity to opportunity. The very first section employers are traditionally looking for is your contact information. If they can't get a hold of you, then they can't hire you. So they need to make sure that they know how to reach you. That's why we put your contact information first. You're going to start with your name in bold. That's going to be the only thing that's larger font on your resume. Right at the top. Underneath that, the city and state of where you live, your phone number, and your email address. We no longer need the street address, so like you see here, just do city and state. Please make sure you put the phone number that you actually answer, and while you're applying for things, actually answer your phone when a phone call comes in from a number you don't recognize. It could very well be an employer trying to reach you. You also don't need to put the word phone in front of it. People are able to identify that this is a phone number. Same with the email. Make sure you use the email address that you actually check. And if you have very strict spam regulations in your email, make sure you're checking your spam folder as well, because you could be getting emails from people you don't traditionally get emails from because you're applying to work for places. So make sure you're checking your email and your phone, and you put your city and state here. The reason why they want to know your city and state is they want to know if you're already commutable to the position you're applying for. That you don't need the street address, but the city and state does tell them if they need to discuss relocation opportunities with you, or if that's going to be something they can expect to come up if they were to offer you the position. The next thing an employer is looking for on your resume is not an objective. Putting an objective on your resume at this stage of your career is like saying, you know, it's cold outside when you go outside and it's cold. I know you want the opportunity with that specific employer when you've applied for the opportunity with that specific employer. So you don't need to write that you're looking to enter the field to work for a company that you're applying to work for. It becomes redundant. So at this stage of the game, I recommend not putting an objective. I also recommend not putting a professional summary or any other paragraph form explanation of who you are at the top of your resume. Your cover letter is going to cover anything unique that you would put in that part, and anything else that you're going to write is going to just be redundant, and it's going to take up very important space that you'd want to use for other things. So I recommend no objective, but I also understand that just because I tell you not to do something doesn't mean you're not going to listen. So if you are going to put an objective on your resume, despite me urging you not to, make sure that it provides a focus for the content of your resume and it's targeted towards a specific position or career field. You can see an example here, results-oriented individual with strong analytical and relationship-building skills, as well as proficiency in accounting software, seeks an early entry-level position in a public accounting firm. The reason I don't believe that this is helpful is because your opinion of yourself that you are results oriented, strong at your analytical skills, you have relationship, these are all just your opinion of yourself, and it's not necessarily true. There's no qualifier with any of these things that you're putting here. The qualifiers are going to come later in the actual resume, hopefully. Also, we know that you're looking for an entry-level position in a public accounting firm because most likely with this resume, you've applied for an entry-level position in a public accounting firm. So as you can see, it's either an unreliable source, which is yourself just bragging about yourself, or it becomes redundant because you're saying you want the job that you've applied to get. So that's why I say don't waste the space on this. The next thing an employer does want to see, though, is your education section. What this is going to tell an employer is that you went to an accredited real university, like the University of Rhode Island. They're going to tell them what type of degree you're going for, so a Bachelor of Science in Health Studies, as an example. If you have a concentration, you can write that as well. If you have any relevant certifications, you can put that right underneath the education section. So if you're CPR certified, that's definitely relevant to the health industry. Anything else that you might have certification-wise or licensing could go in this section. You can write when it expires, or you could not write when it expires. The only real rule here is if it's something that can expire, you need to make sure that if it's on your resume, it is still active, because you can't put anything on your resume that you no longer have. If your CPR certified has expired, as you can see here, this one ended in 2018, that just means this person used to know how to do CPR. So you need to make sure that these things in your certifications and licensing are all still active and not expired. The only date I should see in the education portion is the month and year you anticipate graduating. We don't need the words graduating on or anticipated graduating. We know that if this date has not come yet, then you have not graduated yet. And we know once this date has passed, we assume that you have graduated. There should never be a date range in your education section. So I don't need to see when you started trying to pursue this degree. What I should see is just when you anticipate achieving the degree. The next thing on a resume is the experience section. And when you're writing your experiences on your resume, what you need to do is start with the job description for the opportunity that you're applying for. And when you get to that job description, skip all the way down to the bottom. It's going to say requirements or qualifications. That's going to tell you what needs to be shown on your resume. So first thing is bachelor's degree in healthcare administration, business administration, or related field for this particular position. So your education section is going to show them that you're going to have a bachelor's degree in health administration on whatever date it is that you are graduating. It's going to show them what type of degree you have. So you can check that requirement off. Your resume proves you meet that requirement. The next thing for this position is a minimum of 5 years experience in a hospital administration position. So this is where you need to think about all of the experiences that you've had. Notice it does not say the word employment. It says experience. So internships could theoretically count based on the way this requirement is written. Other types of opportunities you might have had where you volunteered or worked within a hospital administrative position could count towards you applying for this position. It's very rare that you actually see the word employment. They're traditionally looking for experience. So you're going to have to make sure that on your resume you show that you meet a minimum of 5 years of experience. Once you prove that on your resume, you can cross that one off. In-depth knowledge of healthcare regulations and medical terminology. You're going to want to show that you meet this. Essentially, all we're doing is going through and making sure that your resume shows that you meet all of these qualifications. So when you come in and you ask me one day, what should I be putting on my resume? It depends on the position and its particular requirements. But this is what makes things on your resume relevant or irrelevant. I'm going to reference a lot of times throughout this presentation that everything needs to be job specific. So make sure that everything on your resume meets one of these requirements. If I point to something on your resume and ask you, how does this fit the position you're applying for? And you can't tell me, then that thing does not need to be on your resume. Once you put it on your resume, this is what your experience section should look like. So you have relevant experience and we have dates. These dates show me how long you were in these roles. So this is how, as an employer, I can start doing some math and realizing how many years of experience do you have in a hospital setting. But I also can look through and see, all right, so this was at Stop and Shop. These dates won't count towards that qualification. So make sure that when you're writing your resume, you include dates. It goes in reverse chronological order, which means the most recent position comes first. When you're determining the order, always go by the end date. So there's nothing more current than the word present or the word current. So your two presents come first. When you're ordering these two because they have the exact same end date, then you move over to the start date. So you started this position more recently than you've started this position. That's why the Rhode Island Department of Health position will go first, because it has present and then it also started before the other present position. Then you can see this one ends in 17, 16, 14, so reverse chronological order. Everything needs to also have a month in front of it. So May, July, June, you'll see that these all have months. You can abbreviate the months or you can write them all out. Just make sure you stay consistent. So if you're going to abbreviate August, then January needs to be abbreviated and so does October. But write it however you want. You can even just do numbers if you want. So instead of May 2016, you can do 5/16. That is totally up to you and whatever you think looks best for your particular resume. The things we want to see in your experience section includes where was the place that you were working. So this was the Rhode Island Department of Health in Providence, Rhode Island. Your role within this organization was Emergency Medical Services for Children intern, EMSC intern. So now I know what role you had there, and then these bullets tell me specifically what you did within that role. And these are the things that are going to help prove that you are qualified for those positions that you're applying for. Your bullets are where you're going to prove that you meet the qualifications or requirements. Things like Stop and Shop or McDonald's or waitressing at the Olive Garden, those are positions that a lot of students feel aren't relevant at all for what they're applying to do. However, I disagree with that analysis. I believe that these positions have total relevancy to any position you're applying for, as long as you only list the bullets that are relevant to what you're applying for. So as you can see here, operated cash register and provided customer service by answering customers' questions. When you are working in a hospital setting, there's a good chance that you're going to have customer service skills. Also, operating a cash register shows me that you have attention to detail skills. So these are things that are going to be beneficial in your future positions. The things that you leave out is that you know how to restock milk on a shelf. That's something that you're not going to have to do, most likely in the positions you're applying for. So make sure that the bullets for all the positions are relevant to what you're applying for, even if the job titles and companies don't sound like they're relevant. The next section on a resume is the honors and activities section. So when you're creating this section, this is to show how you've spent your free time while you were in college. It's not necessarily to prove that you did your activities and volunteer work within the health industry. It's just to show me that you're somebody who in your free time tries to be productive and didn't just spend your free time playing video games or sleeping or going to parties. You spent your free time interacting, developing social skills, being engaged within the community. These are all things that employers like to see on a resume. You can change these titles to whatever best explains how you spent your free time. So this could be activities, this could be volunteer, this could just be the words extracurricular if you want. But just think about the things that you want to list and then just make up a title that best describes those types of experiences and use them as your header. You also can or cannot put dates in this section. If you know the dates, then put them. I don't necessarily think it matters either way because you're not using these to prove you're qualified. You're just using these to give some insight as to who you are as an individual. So the dates are up to you. The skills section, which is separate from honors and activities, also needs to be on your resume. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's usually the last thing we see on a resume. And skills that we're putting in this section are not soft skills. So I don't want to see that you think that you have great communication skills, or that you think you're a great team player, or that you think you're a perfectionist. This isn't where you take the opportunity to brag about how awesome of a person you believe that you are. This is where you can list different types of technologies, languages, anything that is tangible, hard skills that you can or cannot do. The example that I give is I should be able to, in the middle of a job interview, test you on it, and you can either prove in that interview that you can or cannot do it. So if you're writing on there that you have knowledge of Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, in a job interview, if I were to put a computer in front of you and say, use Microsoft Word, you should be able to, in that interview, use Microsoft Word. If you write on your resume that you are fluent in Spanish, I should be able to conduct the interview with you in Spanish if I choose to do so. And you either can or cannot do that. So the things in your skill section need to be things that you can prove that you can do. There isn't a necessary qualifier for it. Like, you might think you're a very organized person, you have great organizational skills, but somebody who's way more organized than you might think you're horrible at that. That's what I mean by a soft skill. It's something that's interpretive, as opposed to you can either use Word or you can't. Avoid common mistakes when you're doing your resume. So if any of you are trying to guess what the first one's going to be, and you're good at spelling, you might realize that the word common is a hint here for you because it's misspelled. The most common mistake on a resume is misspelling. If you misspell a word on your resume, you're not getting that job. There's no other nicer, softer way for me to tell you that news. If you can't proofread a one-page document that you wrote about yourself, then how can an employer trust you to take on the responsibilities of a position within the health industry? Proofreading a resume is easier than anything an employer is going to ask you to do, so make sure you proofread it. Read your resume out loud. Not many people do that. Show it to other people. Show it to parents. Bring it to the Writing Center in Roosevelt Hall. Bring it to our office in Roosevelt Hall. We'll be happy to look over and read your resume for you. Find that friend that always tells you everything that you do wrong, but for some reason you're still friends with them. Give it to that person, because that person will definitely tell you all of the mistakes that you've made. So just make sure a lot of eyes see your resume, read it out loud, make sure there's no misspellings. Also, check for grammar. Using the wrong versions of the words your or their could be worse than actually misspelling words. That's sometimes more embarrassing. So make sure that the grammar is correct and the spelling is correct. The next common mistake we see is people with the belief that there is a rule for one page. I call it a one-page coincidence. And what I mean by that is for 99% of students that are graduating with a bachelor's degree, if you make sure that your resume is tailored to the position you're applying for and there's no extra irrelevant fluff built into your resume, by the time you're all said and done with college, you should have a solid one-page resume. You're not necessarily leaving anything important off. Just if you were to showcase all of your relevant, awesome experiences that prove you're qualified for that specific position, your resume should fit on one page. And I see one-page resumes in over 99% of the students who come to see me by the time we're done. If you believe that your resume is 2 pages and you've cut out all of the fluff and irrelevant stuff, then one other issue is going to be formatting, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this common mistake slide. But also, a lot of times it's just you not being able to admit that something you've done that's very impressive is irrelevant to what you're applying to do with your future. So you can bring it to me, you can bring it to our office, and our office can help go through your resume and help you remove different items to get it down to one page and also work on your formatting. Please do not send out a 2-page resume without getting approval from our office. The next thing is use proper tenses when writing your experiences. So if your experience's end date is the word present or current, which means you're still currently doing that experience. then all of your bullets should be written in the present tense. If your experience has an end date, which means you're no longer doing that experience, then all of your bullets need to be written in past tense. So make sure as you leave positions in your career, you update the tenses on your resumes. A lot of times, students and professionals forget to take that step when they're using their past resumes to apply for new positions. Make sure the tenses are appropriate. The next thing is just letting you know that your margin should be anywhere from a half an inch to 1 inch. Your font needs to be simple, and your bullets need to be straight to the point. So your bullets are going to start with action verbs when you're writing your experiences. They're not going to start with I did this thing. You don't want to start with that. It's not complete sentences. It's just administered IVs to patients. That could be an entire bullet. There's no periods at the end of it because it's not a complete sentence. So I don't want to see periods at all on your resume. But your bullets need to be short, to the point. The font needs to be easy to read. Times New Roman, Courier, those are some popular ones that students tend to use. Tailor it to the job, use job description words, and make sure all content is job relevant. That's 3 ways of saying almost the exact same thing, because I just can't stress it enough. Everything on your resume needs to be relevant to what you're applying for. My final example for this is this guy. The only thing you need to know about this guy for this example to make sense is that his name is Tom, and he's pretty good at throwing a football. Some say Tom is actually the best that's ever thrown a football. He's won many Super Bowls. He's been interviewed on TV. He's won a lot of awards. He's gotten paid millions and millions of dollars because of his ability to throw a football. If you were to ask Tom, what are you most proud of in your life, other than maybe his wife, kids, and family, he's going to say his ability to throw a football. And when Tom finally retires from throwing a football and decides he wants to work in an office, no one is going to care at all about Tom's ability to throw a football. My point is, despite being the best ever at doing something and winning the biggest awards you could win, when Tom applies to work at an office, even though that was a big part of his previous job, he is not going to include on his resume how good he is at throwing a football. However, I'm not telling you that Tom's going to leave off his resume the fact that he was a football player. Instead, what he's going to talk about are the transferable experiences he had within that role. So, having to report to a supervisor, or what he called a coach, having to train incoming athletes on how to work within his team's dynamic. There's a lot of different things that Tom did within the role of playing football that's relevant to working in an office. However, he's not going to include any bullets on how to play football, even though that's the most important part of his previous job. Just make sure that all of your bullets are relevant to the position you're applying for. You're trying to prove why you should be able to do this new thing, not why you were great at your past things. When you're all said and done, your resume is going to look similar to this. You're going to have a bunch of sections. If you take my advice, you won't have an objective section, but you'll have your contact info, your education, your experiences, honors activities, all of those fun things. And when somebody asks you, do you know how to make a resume? You'll be able to smile and say, yes, I do, because I listened to Doug's long presentation on resumes. But then someone's going to say, well, now we also need a cover letter from you, and do you know how to write one of those? And the face I normally get when I ask that question looks more like this, because students tend to hate cover letters. The other face I get is this one, because, once again, students tend to hate cover letters. So my goal for the second half of this presentation, which is going to be on cover letters, is for me to explain to you why cover letters shouldn't make you this angry. This is what a cover letter ultimately looks like when it's all said and done. As you can see, this part that stresses you out isn't that much of the page. A lot of it is just straight up formatting. So the beginning of your cover letter is your contact info. So you can take that contact info we created straight at the top of your resume, just copy and paste that to the top of your cover letter, and then the contact info of who you're applying to work for. So in this example, pretend that you are applying to work for me. So I posted a job online, you saw it, you want to apply for it, and you're writing a cover letter for that position. You're writing it to me because I'm the one that's overseeing the position. My job title is here, and this is the address of where I work. Dear whoever this is, which is me, dear Mr. We Met. This is the beginning of the formatting for your cover letter. This date is the date that you write the cover letter. So make sure that this is updated as well if you're using an old cover letter to start off this new template. So your header from your resume, the date that you write the cover letter, who the cover letter is going to, dear whoever that person is. Now we have what is a 3-paragraph narrative, which is the core body of your cover letter. This is the most important part of the cover letter. The analogy that I use to teach students how to write cover letters is dating. The reason I use dating as an analogy is because it seems to make a lot of sense for students. Students laugh at the corny analogy, and ultimately what's important is you remember it, and it actually helps students write cover letters. So, when you start off meeting somebody that you're interested in potentially dating or getting to know, if you walk up to that person and say, "Hi, my name is Doug, and I think I'm really handsome, great, wonderful, and amazing. My car's great, my job's awesome, and you'd be lucky to date me," you're most likely going to make this face because I sound extremely arrogant and awful, and I'm not somebody that you're going to want to spend a lot of time with. However, if instead of doing that, I talk about the things that are unique to you. Like if I come up and say, "Hi, my name is Doug, and my friend Steve said I should get to know you because you're really interesting and you're really fun and you're really cool," you're most likely going to want to continue hearing that type of narrative. It is the exact same thing with cover letters. Unfortunately, too many students start off their cover letters with the arrogance. They start off with, "Hi, my name is Doug, and I'm a current University of Rhode Island student majoring in health studies. I'm an amazing health studies student. I have all these amazing skills. My mom thinks I'm great, and I'd be a perfect fit for your organization." That's a very arrogant, conceited way to start a cover letter. Instead, start off with, "Hi, my name is Doug. I'm a current University of Rhode Island student majoring in health studies. I'm really interested in applying for the position that I found on your website. I'm really interested in this position at your company because," and the rest of this paragraph needs to be what you find interesting about that company, and it needs to be unique to them. So, in the example that's on the screen, you can see, "I like that you know so much about jazz. That's something that's unique." If I were to say to my then girlfriend, now wife, when I first met her, "Hi, I'm really interested in getting to know you because you're a female," that's not unique to her. Every female could provide me with that characteristic. So, what I said instead is, "I think your green eyes are beautiful," or "I think this interest that you have is really interesting." It needs to be tailored and unique to the company. The easiest way to write your first paragraph is to just go to the company's About Us page on their website and look at all the different things that they think make them awesome and unique. Find a few things that you also think are awesome and unique about them that are on that page, and write about those in your first paragraph. Those are the things that are going to help make you stand out. Because in your first paragraph, what we're trying to show is, one, why are you writing this letter? Which is, what do you find most attractive about this organization? Most likely, it's the job title and job position that they have listed. That's their most attractive quality. The next thing is, how did you discover the job? So, I found this position on your website, or I found it on Indeed, or I found it on Handshake through URI's job board. And then most importantly, why do you want the job? What makes this position attractive? What makes our company attractive to you? Hint, money and benefits is not the right answer. So don't say, "I want this job because it pays well or it gives me a lot of time off." That's not what they're looking for here. What they're looking for is what's unique about this position and their company that draws you to this position. This is paragraph 1, possibly the most important paragraph of your entire cover letter. After you're done writing the paragraph about why you love them, the next paragraph is now why they should love you. Paragraph 2 is where you can start talking about yourself. Going back to the dating analogy, once you're done telling somebody why they're awesome, most likely you're not going to get lucky enough for them to pull out a sheet of paper that says, here's what I'm looking for in a partner. However, jobs are nice enough to do that for you. It's called the job description. So when you're going through the job description, they tell you straight out, this is what we are looking for in a candidate. So when you're looking through the job description at the very bottom where the qualifications are, if you remember them from your experience section of the resume, pick 2 or 3 different qualifications. On your cover letter, you are not proving that you meet all of the qualifications. That is what your resume does. Your cover letter is to tell a story your cover letter is designed for you to tell a story about a situation you are in that's similar to the position you're applying for. So the position that I'm in right now as a career specialist, part of my job is advising students on resumes, cover letters, and job search processes. So when I wrote my cover letter for this position, my second paragraph talked about a past role that I had where I assisted students in writing resumes, cover letters, and searching for jobs and internships. That way, my now boss, but then person overseeing the hiring process, was able to read my cover letter and imagine what I would be like while I'm advising students on resumes, cover letters, and searching for positions. This is what you're trying to show in paragraph 2. Not that you're qualified, you're just trying to prove or show what you're going to be like while doing the job. That's why this needs to be a story. But paragraph 2 is why they should like you. Be honest. Don't exaggerate stories. Don't try and make things out to be more than they were or less than they were. Just find an actual example of a time you did something similar to what you're going to be doing in this future role, and tell us about that time that you did it. Paragraph 3 is the final paragraph. After paragraph 1, I say is the I like you paragraph. Paragraph 2 is the they like you paragraph. Paragraph 3 is now that you both like each other, ask for the date. So this is where you are closing this all up. Thank you so much for taking time to read my cover letter and attached resume. I'd really love to discuss this opportunity with you further. Please feel free to contact me and give them your contact information. Sincerely, your name. That is the closing piece. So make sure in that third paragraph you're thanking them for reading your cover letter and resume. Also make sure that you're providing your contact info, your phone number and email address in that final paragraph. Even though it is also listed at the top of your cover letter in the contact section. I understand that that's going to feel a little redundant for some of you. But have it at the top and at the bottom. You do not want them to have to spend 1 second trying to figure out how to call you when they feel like they want to call you. Just have it right in front of their face at the end of reading this cover letter. Sincerely, your name at the end, and that is the cover letter. When you're all said and done, you'll have a cover letter that looks similar to this. You'll have the header section that was on your resume, the date that you write it, who it's going to, I like you, you like me, let's get together. That's your narrative for your 3 paragraphs. Sincerely, your name. When we're talking about this part at the very end where you put your name, if you are going to print the cover letter and physically sign it, make sure you leave space for you to actually do that. That isn't something that's expected anymore. So if you're not going to sign this, you're just going to save it as a PDF and submit it. Do not leave a space here. With the space and no signature, it just looks incomplete. So if you're not going to sign it, just sincerely, and then the next line, your name. Only leave this space if you plan on signing. When we're all said and done, somebody should be able to ask you if you know how to write a cover letter, and now you should be able to say yes. My contact information is right here for you to utilize whenever you need. I work in Roosevelt Hall, room 125. My email address, my phone number is right there. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can also make appointments with me straight through Starfish. If you have any other questions, anything I didn't cover, things you want me to elaborate on, or if you just want me to review your resume and cover letter, please feel free to email me or set up an appointment to meet with me. Thank you.